Hey guys, it's Yorkie here and welcome to the channel for some Le Mans Ultimate gameplay where we have a 75-minute race around Le Mans, one of the recent weekly races that LMU had hosted. Jumped into this session, tried fiddling around with a bit of a custom setup for this race and didn't really quite get it dialed in. I was having an issue where I was losing the rear end of the car going into Indianapolis the majority of the time, and therefore didn't really get a proper clean lap, which is why I'm starting down in P25. So quite a bit further down the grid than I would have wanted to have been. But nonetheless, 34 hypercars in this field with GT3 there as well, 16 of those. So a multi-class race should be good fun. 75 minutes as mentioned, and that's actually got 2 times fuel usage here in this race as well. So rather than the usual 13-14 laps that these hypercars are going to be able to do, we're only going to be able to do 6 or 7 laps as we very nearly go into the back of the BMW there here in this formation phase. One thing I will apologise is if you do notice slight choppiness here in this video, it is due to the fact that I accidentally left the graphic settings on this on their highest settings when I was trying to capture some screenshots for a previous video. Didn't realise going into this race, therefore my frame rate was in and around this point, kind of around about 50-55 frames per second. But once the field starts to spread out, we do get back up against above 60. So apologies for the slight choppiness there. Hopefully it doesn't affect the video quality too much, but at least the game looks absolutely fantastic. Nice, clear, beautiful quality. So here we are then, starting in P25 for the moment. We're just waiting for that green light, which we're going to get pretty much as we're coming out of the final corner. We've got a very nice mix of cars here in this field, as you can see. Some BMWs, Porsches, Peugeots, Lamborghini. We're in the Ferrari 499P hypercar, and we're already gaining 2 positions. It looks like there's a little bit of chaos unfolding up in front of us. Cars spinning off here, there, and everywhere. So we're going to try and avoid that. More chaos going on, as you can see by the radar, and I'm effectively forced to go across the inside of the Dunlop chicane there. But with that chaos and calamity, we do gain a whole bunch of positions now up to P18, so that's worked out very, very nicely for us, having started in P25. Obviously the 2 cars in front of us side by side coming on the approach to Techeru, so we're just having to be patient and settle in behind them for the moment, as we've got a BMW over here on the left hand side of the circuit who looks to be a little bit slow, probably ran a little bit too wide, and was trying to negate a track limits warning there. So we're in the slipstream of the Porsche up in front of us, and the BMW this quite early coming here into this first Mulsanne chicane, and we're now up into P17, so 8 positions already gained here in this opening lap, and a few people not particularly happy there in the online chat, as you can see. So we're just trying to play a little bit more cool and calm and collected than we did the last time that we did a race here at Le Mans, because we were having a phenomenal start and then we messed it up coming into the braking zone here into this second Mulsanne chicane, locking up the tyres. This time, no such mistake, learnt from that, and we get through it unscathed. You see a few people up in front battling away, trading positions and locking up here and there. So they're kind of holding each other up a little bit. So we are on the run now down towards Mulsanne corner. Another quite big braking zone again, taking it relatively easy as we've got side by side from multiple cars there. A little bit of contact between 2 of them. The Lamborghini getting shoved out a little bit wide there, not exactly translating the power particularly well for them. Allows us to slip on through and gain another position. So we're tucked right up underneath the rear wing of this Porsche in front of us. They go defensive to the right hand side, so we tuck to the left and get a little bit of slipstream coming down these straights here, which does help us draw up alongside and ahead as we come into Indianapolis. Thought they were going to maybe have a little bit of a look at coming back at us, but they tuck back in for now, conceding the position. So we're up 10 places here on the opening lap as they're kind of looking to the inside. I think more defensive, to be fair, to the BMW LMDH car. That relieves a little bit of pressure for us as well from behind. So now we can kind of focus on the cars in front and see if we can continue to gain some more places over the course of the next few laps. Just taking it nice and steady, coming through the Porsche curves, because the other thing that is worthy of noting here in this race is we have we only have 4 new tyres. They get taken at the very start of the race. So there's no new tyres available in the pit stops. So these tyres do have to last us the entirety of the 75 minutes. The good thing is the tyre wear is on 1 time. So it's only the fuel rate that is accelerated here in this race. So we need to be fairly careful with the tyres and just manage them over the course of the 75 minutes to make sure that we've got some good amount of grip towards the end. It's something that I'm relatively good at anyway in comparison to most other drivers. Obviously some of the quicker, more esports guys who are more familiar with the game, they'll know how to look after the tyres as well. But it's one thing that I've always been good at in various different sims, is looking after the tyres. So I'm hoping that I can continue that trend here in this race and have some good tyre life for the end, just in case there is any battling. And indeed there is some battling. Definitely stay for the end of the race because it gets really, really tense, and yeah, it's worth it. So yeah, as you saw, as I was waffling on that, the Porsche and the BMW up in front of us have traded positions. So doing a slight lift there, coming into the first chicane as someone has spun off on the inside of the chicane, so that is going to be a freebie that we gain. So now up into P14, making very, very good progress here in these opening laps. Slipstreaming the BMW up in front of us. Fantastic wear of the flywheel hybrid here on this Ferrari, spinning and wearing away. And you can hear it there, regenning under braking as well. A classic Le Mans onboard sound. Remember the old days of the, about 10 years ago now, the old Audi R18, when they first introduced the hybrids. The flywheel whir of the hybrid system deploying and regenning is an absolute iconic noise. As Porsche there, that was 2 positions ahead of us, running deep in Mulsanne corner. So another freebie. But yeah, they've recreated the sounds of this car very, very well, very immersive. A lot of fidelity and detail that comes through the sounds as well. So we've got the Porsche behind, threatening us a little bit coming here into Indianapolis corner as we take the first part of Indianapolis a little bit cautiously there, and that is the place where I was losing the rear end of the car that I was talking about at the start of the video. It's not something that I'd experienced in other cars before whilst driving around here at Le Mans, but it was something that I was really struggling with in the practice during the lead up to this race. So I basically started fiddling with the setup, trying to figure out a way to try and dial out the oversteer in that particular moment and make the car a little bit more drivable. So the setup that I'm running is not optimal. I'm actually running 3 rear wing. I started off with the in-game Coach Dave setup that is available there in-game, that preset, and then I've made a bunch of tweaks to it. But that Coach Dave setup starts on 1 rear wing, and I've upped it 2 clicks to 3. I had played around with the ride height settings and kind of got the speeds on the straights similar to what I was getting with the Coach Dave setup without any changes. I think it was only basically about 1 kilometre down at the end in going into the braking zone of the first Mulsanne chicane, so it wasn't really a huge difference, and it kind of felt like it was making a little bit of an impact, making the car a little bit safer to drive coming in through the corners. But this setup is by far no means optimal. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I can certainly improve. Brake ducts definitely could be closed up an awful lot, as well as the radiators, which are all things that I did end up making changes to the car setup after this race when I reran this race a number of other times as well. And I made a few other changes, so been dialing it in, but for this race here, it was yeah, not exactly where I wanted or needed it to be. So you can see we're losing out a little bit of ground to the BMW on the straight, but we close it back up again quite nicely coming into the braking zone. Still lingering within the slipstream window, which is quite nice. But I'm also thinking at this point that we do need to try and get past this BMW as soon as possible, because the cars in front are starting to pull away. The gap somewhere between 2 and 2.5 seconds. So braking a little bit later there at the 100-metre board going into the second chicane, just to try and close up a little bit more ground onto the back of the BMW to be a little bit closer, to see if we can potentially make a little bit of a threat coming down towards Mulsanne corner, if not down towards Indianapolis. But we haven't really made any impression or any ground on the BMW in front, although they do get a little bit squirrely there in the braking zone and again on the exit as well. So not great power translation coming off Mulsanne corner. This gives us the opportunity to slip up alongside, but with our draggier car this might be a little bit more difficult, as I know the BMW has got some very good top end speed. A little bit of a bump there between the two of us, as I don't think the BMW realised that I was quite there alongside Steele, and probably, well, they didn't give us enough room at the second little kink as a Porsche there locking up and running a little bit deep in Indianapolis proper. But we got the move done and we are now up into 12th place. Gap to just under 2 seconds to the car in front. So it looks like the Cadillac Daniel Toit is had a moment or two themselves coming through Mulsanne or Indianapolis and Arnage. And you can see just the ebbs and flows as we come through the Porsche curves and out the other side, where we're gaining and losing ground on the cars in front, and that was a net loss of about 0.2 of a second. Although we are quite nicely up. That's quite a big lock up there by the Cadillac up in front of us, who goes and skips the first part of this Ford chicane. So they are going to lose time here. Indeed, gap now 1.5 seconds as we come across the line and set our fastest lap of the race so far. But obviously, previous laps we've been tucked up behind someone else, so now we've got a little bit of clear air. Let's try and use that and see if we can close back up onto the cars up in front of us. Just noticing down there in the bottom right hand corner the state of the fuel in the NRG. So the key is to make sure that the NRG does not reach 0%, otherwise that's going to be a very hefty penalty. So we gained quite a bit of time here on the Cadillac on the approach and run through Tessera Rouge. We picked up a track limits warning there, as you just saw. It's not impacting us too much. But yeah, we've got 2.5 laps worth of fuel and 2.7 laps worth of NRG remaining. Obviously with this 2 times accelerated fuel rate, that is having an impact on the stint length, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So we do make quite a nice bit of healthy ground there on the Cadillac in front of us in that first chicane. Hopefully we can continue to close up on them more in the chicanes that follow. Coming in towards the braking zone now. Very small amount of lift and coast there. Generally looked a little bit tidier, gaining maybe about half a tenth or so. Not really all that much in the grand scheme of things, but we are quite nicely up on our previous fastest lap. So you can see in the track map up there in the top right where the hypercar field spread is. Hypercars are listed in the yellowy gold colour, and then the GT3s are blue, as indicated by the leaderboard up in the top left when using the Race Labs overlay that I'm using here. You can see we've still got about a third of, or a quarter of a lap to go to reach the back of the GT3 field. Small puff of smoke from the car up in front, so probably a slight lockup. So I'm maybe running a little bit wide there on the exit of Indianapolis as well. It looks like two cars are side by side, so obviously someone's had a little bit of drama somewhere along the line. This is going to help us very, very nicely to close up onto them, and it looks like it's P8, P9 is the battle that is up there, up in front of us. And there's a bit of a gap, about 4.5 seconds to P7 further up in front, so just once again playing around with the motor maps, trying to balance the fuel usage and the hybrid usage. You can see our state of charge has gone up to 78%, is the number that is in the bottom left corner of the display on the steering wheel. Now down at 74, 73, and slowly counting down, or now counting up as we're in the braking zone and obviously regenerating the hybrid power. But it's also visualised with the bar along the bottom of the steering wheel display. On the right hand side, the numbers that are quite rapidly decreasing and now going to begin rapidly increasing. Those are our brake temperatures. And then on the opposite side of the wheel to that, the left hand side, we've got our, I believe our tyre pressure is the larger four numbers, and then the inner four numbers are the tyre temperature. I think not fully the core, but just below the surface, as they do seem to fluctuate up and down. So maybe a couple of layers of tread below the actual surface of the tyre. We're closing up a fair bit more now onto the back of the Cadillac, much closer. 0.3 seconds as we lift and coast here, as I'm realising that I've only got 1.5 laps of fuel left, which isn't going to be enough to do another 2 laps. I've got the energy to do it, but not the fuel to do it. So I'm just playing around with the fuel ratio to try and get that better balance for the next bunch of stints. As you can see, I'm moving it up and down, and I'm looking at the amount of fuel that it's putting into the tank and what that is going to be worth. As again, another lockup from a car up in front of us as we close right up onto the back there of the Cadillac at the apexes of that second chicane. And yeah, just looking in the bottom right hand corner again, 1.3 laps now. It's not going to be enough to do another lap, because you basically need 1.5 laps when you get to here. Mulsanne Corners is effectively the halfway point around the lap. So, well, actually it's a little bit further over halfway, but ideally you want 1.5 when you get to Mulsanne Corner there. So we are going to have to pit at the end of this lap, and it's quite interesting how the strategy plays out, with people opting for different strategies, some going completely flat out and just taking the fuel that they need, other people doing some lifting and coasting and fuel saving as a swap of positions up in front of us. Closing nicely up onto the back of the Cadillac there, coming into Indianapolis proper. Now coming into Arnage, we get a slight little lock up from the rear of the car under braking. We managed to regather that, but then we go into the back of the Cadillac there at the apex of Arnage Corner. We're a little bit slower than I anticipated, but that was predominantly my fault. So we lost a little bit of time from that. Hopefully it hasn't incurred any damage to either ourselves or the Cadillac up in front. So I'm lifting and coasting in a couple of places just to try and save a little bit of fuel and take a little bit less. And yeah, as I was talking about, people going for different strategies. What ended up being the optimal strategy is to lift and coast and try and extend stints as much as possible, to then have a shorter stop as your final stop. But we'll see how that plays out in terms of race positioning and all that sort of thing as we go through this video. So here we are coming into the pits, getting the car slowed down quite nicely there. There's a couple of cars joining us in the pit lane as well, not quite having either enough fuel or NRG to make it for another lap. So up on the Japs we go, getting slightly readjusted, but that doesn't actually impact the pit stop time. it's all included in the pit stop time. And then jumping ahead in the pit stop, we do have a Lamborghini just a couple of boxes in front of us. And thankfully our pit crew rotates us quite nicely so we can just drive out without having to do any drastic evasive manoeuvres. Trundling down the pit lane now as a few other people get rolling as well. You see the Porsche Torres up in front, who was the car that was immediately in front of us when we came into the pit lane, maintaining their position ahead of us about a second to a second and a half, maybe slightly more. We shall see once we come out the exit of the Dunlap chicane there and under the Dunlap bridge. And yeah, 2 seconds. So 2 seconds is the gap that we need to close down to the car in front as we now skip ahead towards the end of the same lap. We have managed to gain about half a second to 6, maybe 7 tenths as everyone else is now into the pit lane to take their stop as well. So we rejoin the track in 24th position after our first stop. We're obviously going to gain a whole bunch of positions here, but how many positions do we actually gain back, and where do we come out at the end of all that? And it is going to be a very nice, lovely P7. So gained 4 or 5 positions in and amongst the pit stop there by having a slightly shorter stop than everyone else. You can see up in the top left-hand corner in that standings board, within that yellow box, the L6 or L7 is the lap that we pitted on, and then the number that's next to it, the 0109, is the length of our pit stop. And that includes the time from pit entry to pit exit. So 1 minute and 9 seconds we spent from the pit limiter online to the pit limiter offline. So that includes the time that we were stationary making the stop, and you can see other people around us were 1 minute and 14. So we saved ourselves 5 seconds there by obviously having a bit more fuel or energy in the tank when we came in, not having quite a whole lap, but kind of like 0.8 in terms of fuel. I think we might have actually had around about a whole lap in terms of NRG. So we saved ourselves a little bit of time there, and we've gained some positions through that. But obviously it means that my last stop at the end is going to be a little bit longer than some of the other people as well, as we've got GT3 traffic now up in front of us. Wasn't necessarily my intention to go down the inside there. I can see that was obviously closing, and I kind of showed my nose just to see, just in case I was able to make it. I realised as soon as I got on the brakes that the GT3s obviously brake later than we do, and as soon as I got on the brakes I thought, I'm not going to get past this GT3, I'm just going to slot in behind them. But then they actually braked really quite hard and let us go. So yeah, worked out quite nicely in the end. And then obviously we passed the other BMW off the exit of the second chicane. Now 2 more GT3s passing here on this straight down towards Indianapolis. We're going to pass a third BMW as well, and we're not going to be able to get this next BMW up in front of us. So we're going to hold position for the moment as someone kicks up some dust on the exit of Indianapolis proper there. Now we're able to get past the BMW. So I didn't really lose too much time there, which is good. Well, in comparison to Torres up in front, and we'll quite comfortably pass this this McLaren here on this straight before the entrance to the Porsche cars, so we're not going to get held up there either. It's very important to be patient with the multi-class traffic. You can kind of somewhat control where you meet them by lifting a little bit earlier. And that's kind of the thing that you want to be doing in these hypercars, is effectively giving yourself the best run possible coming off the exit of the corner. So it pays dividends to lift and brake earlier if there's a GT3 up in front of you, as you'll probably see here coming into, yeah, indeed, the 4 chicane. So I'm holding a nice distance, not really tucking myself up underneath the rear wing, so I can take these corners at a little bit more normal speed, and I've got a little bit more time and better drive and momentum coming off the exit of the corner, and not losing time there, because if I'm tucked up right underneath the rear wing, I'm going to have to hesitate getting onto the throttle on the exit of the corner, and that's obviously then going to carry that time loss all the way down the next straight as well. So just trying to minimise that time loss where he possibly can, and that's now all GT3 cars cleared. Some of them we did clear in the pit lane, and we jump now up ahead to a little bit later on in the race. Number of laps have passed, and we haven't really made too much more of an impression on Torres. Gap still about 1.3, 1.4 seconds. But you can see now we've got 1.3 laps of NRG remaining, so we're not going to be stopping here on this lap, but we will be stopping on the next one. But I'm expecting some people to be stopping on this lap, and that should see us gain a few positions. Just threading our way through the Porsche curves, just trying to nail the apex. It's not troubling the track limits too much, nor am I trying to put too much load through the tyres. Torres in front does go off into the pit lane, so we've actually managed to gain a lap over him. So we get all kind of sideways there, coming off the exit of the Ford chicane onto the start-finish straight. Curbs are a little bit grabby here in Le Mans Ultimate, especially those curbs there in the Ford chicane, and they can have a bit of an impact if you don't approach them in the right way. At this point in this race, I haven't quite learned the lines and got it quite perfected, but after doing this race multiple times over the course of well, this was I believe the 7 o'clock slot on the Wednesday. I think I did this race again at 9 o'clock that same evening, and then I did the race 2 more times on Friday, and the 7 o'clock slot on the Friday evening learned quite a lot, because there was some very, very fast drivers in that race, so I was able to spectate them afterwards, just to see what they were doing, what kind of speeds they were hitting coming down the straight, and they were hitting 334, 335, even with lifting and coasting coming into this first chicane here. So I realised there were some setup tweaks that were needed to be made, and I have since made those tweaks and been able to achieve similar speeds. But I was also able to obviously observe their lines and the way that they approach certain corners, and that's helped fine-tune my own lines as well. The Ford chicane, that final chicane, is the main one. Really have to kind of get the car squared off quite nicely on the entrance, because you can really attack the curbs on entry, but you do have to try and keep the steering wheel straight. If you've got any sort of steering lock on, you will get pulled in the direction that you are turning in. But yeah, with the other people pitting here on this lap, we're up into P4. As I said, with the lifting and coasting, we have managed to gain ourselves a lap over Torres. The question is going to be, where are we going to come out in comparison to them? Obviously, they're probably going to have a shorter stop, so they'll probably do another 1 minute and 9 seconds, whereas I'm more likely going to be 1 minute 14, 1 minute 15. I'm just having a look at the state of the tyres here at the moment, as we're coming up to 36 minutes remaining in this race. Tyres looking fairly good at the moment, in around 86, 87 odd %. So it should hold relatively nicely coming towards the end. Obviously, we will see the grip levels continuing to drop, especially as we also, as you can see, kind of coming in towards sunset here as well. I think the race started at 8 PM in-game time, but the time acceleration is set to real time or 1 times, so we're going in towards 9 o'clock, and 9:15 is when the race is due to finish in the evening at in-game time. So coming through the Porsche curves now. Fluctuating and playing around with the throttle, just trying to help get the car tucked in by decreasing the throttle amount and just trying to bring the weight forward slightly onto the front tyres. Just get the car nicely slowed down for the chicane on the pit entry here. And again, nice and safe coming into the speed limit line. Obviously attacking it a little bit, trying not to lose too much time, but still trying to make sure that we don't go speeding into the pit lane. And we've got a 40-second stop this time around. And here we are, skipping through the pit stop, and you can see in the top left we are tumbling down the order as those drivers who went one lap longer than I did on the previous stint are continuing to hold that one lap advantage, and obviously going one lap further here in this stint. So we're going to be rejoining the track in P19 as there goes Torres. Torres disappearing off round the first corner and into the chicane of turns 2 and turn 3. You see up in the top left on their last stop, 1 minute and 8 seconds in the pit lane compared to my 1 minute 14. So we've lost a chunk of time there. 6 seconds in total, but we are only 4 seconds behind, so it's not all too bad as we skip ahead towards the end of the same lap. Gap still lingering in and around 4 seconds. But pay attention down on the relative in the bottom left-hand corner. You can see Jay Jr. 14 seconds up the road, and that time is now starting to tumble rather rapidly. Vidal as well. His time is now also starting to tumble fairly quickly as we come now in towards Indianapolis. So those two have had an incident and are coming together somewhere along the line in and around Indianapolis. I think Junior may have had an incident by themselves and then Vidal got caught up in it. So come now on this straight towards the Porsche curves, flicking the motor map up into 60 to start some deployment. There's a load of smoke and there is a spinning car from the left hand side, and that is the BMW of Vidal. So that's a freebie that we have gained there, although they were due to stop here in this lap anyway. But that is us up in position, and here comes the GT3 up in front of us. Pretty wide there, coming through the long right-hander. Obviously there's no way to really pass through that left-hander there, so I'm going to have to wait until the exit, which has cost us some time. Now 1.2 to 1.4 seconds back further than we were to Torres earlier on in the lap. So the gap is now in around 5 seconds, but we're going to jump a whole bunch of positions here as we are passing those people in the pit lane making their second stop. And it is P6 that we now hold. So 4.5 seconds there or thereabouts to Torres up in front. We've got a little bit of work to close that gap down. And later on in that lap, it's exactly what we're managing to do. I think they were lifting and coasting through a few corners, possibly making a little mistake here or there, but we managed to get the gap to under 3 seconds now. There was also a little bit of traffic. We passed 2 GT3 cars, and I think one of the chicanes he caught one of those GT3s, so he lost some time there. But coming through the Porsche curves now, he's got some more GT3 traffic up in front of him. And obviously we got a bit of clear air here, so we can make use of this, and this should allow us to draw even closer still. He does manage to clear this BMW before that left-hander that we just went through, so it hasn't lost as much time as they could have. And now obviously we're going to be behind this BMW here coming in through the Ford chicane, so this is compromising us a little bit here. Again, I'm trying to line myself up for a good exit, but I get understeer, as did the BMW. They ran a little bit wide, and there's a little bit of a pinch there on the exit of the Ford chicane, which has cost us some time, gap back over 2 seconds. But once again, he catches traffic in just the wrong place at the wrong time, following them coming through the Dunlop chicane, whereas I can attack that at full racing speed. Can we time this BMW just right? Coming through the S's here, past them just before Tetra Rouge without losing too much time. There's a slight lift on the throttle there that I wouldn't usually take, but the time loss is relatively minimal. So 2 seconds is now the gap. There's more traffic up ahead that will come into play. So again, just managing the hybrid there, attacking the braking zone coming into this corner this time round, trying to close and gain a little bit of time on the cars in front. Just having a look at the pit strategy, the lap target system that I've got to set to 1 lap longer. than the default, although I haven't changed that since the first stop. I don't think so. Calculation is going to be a little bit off. Once again, Torres is getting caught up on the back of a GT3 coming through a set of corners, and gained a good second there on them. Obviously, we were able to pass them on the straight without losing any time, so the gap is now under a second. So again, I'm looking more at the pit stop pit strategy here. So I'm trying to work out how much energy I'm actually going to need for the final stop. There's 25 minutes remaining here in this race, so one more stop is going to have to be made, and I'm just working out in my head as to how many laps there are going to be remaining. It's the Ferrari switching from the right side of the track to the left hand side of the track just as we're approaching, which isn't exactly ideal. It should be the job of the faster class cars to find their way around the slower class cars. They should be holding their line. So that makes it more predictable for us to figure out where the slower class car is going to be, and therefore where the best place to overtake is going to be. But when they start moving around, obviously throws that predictability out the window, and that's when mistakes and collisions start to happen. So just having a quick look there at the strategy page. 11.7 minutes of fuel remaining, 11 minutes of NRG remaining, and I haven't looked down the inside of the BMW there, but wasn't quite able to make that pass in time. See, that's exactly what the GT3 should be doing, is they should be holding their line, and that made it a lot more predictable. As soon as I saw the BMW starting to turn in, I knew at that exact moment I'm not going to be able to go up the inside of them, and therefore it's purely on me to back out and try and make the move around the outside work. Whereas if they just kind of lingered there on the outside, I would have been hesitating an awful lot, kind of thinking, where the hell are they going? Are they actually going to turn in, or are they not? And yeah, a little bit of a sketchy moment, but that was more on my part there rather than the GT3's fault. That was me just misjudging things rather than a communication error. But that Ford chicane there, obviously I caught the traffic that time. Torres was able to build a little bit of a gap and get it back over 2 seconds. But yeah, as I was saying, we had about 11 minutes of NRG remaining, so I'm there thinking in my head, that's going to take us to about 12 minutes remaining. That's going to be about 3 to 4 laps worth of fuel that we are going to need, or 3 to 4 laps of NRG that we're going to need at the end of the race in order to make it to the end. So there, I'm just having another look. There we go, 10 minutes is the virtual energy prediction that you can see at the bottom. 2.8 laps, 10 minutes remaining. Pretty much confirming that 12-13 minutes is going to be when I'm going to be diving into the pits. So I'm therefore trying to figure out in my head, just like, right, okay, lap times are kind of 325 to 330. Let's start now adjusting the virtual energy that I'm going to need for this stop. Start preparing that strategy. But the question is, do I risk it with just 3 laps, or do I go 4 laps? That was the battle that I was having in my head. As we now skip ahead to 2 laps remaining, we've managed to get the gap to Torres back under a second, as 2 people have gone into the pit stop. One of them ahead with me, the other one was behind me, so that's why I've gained a position there up into P5. Now we're closing in on Torres. The thing that I was noticing over the course of the laps, whilst we were running in free air, once we cleared the GT3 traffic again, is that I had the pace over Torres. I think they were starting to struggle with tyres a little bit more. They were looking a little bit more loose and squirrely, as again, not the best of runs coming through Tête Rouge. I didn't know whether that's them actually braking there, coming off the exit, but this has given us a fantastic run and opportunity to draw alongside. We're now pulling ahead of them on the approach to the first Mulsanne chicane. Indeed, we do manage to clear them, and we slot back in on the racing line as we come into the braking zone there. So that's now us up into P4, but they'll likely be coming into the pits at the end of this lap. As on that previous stint, I had managed to go 1 lap extra, so I do have the advantage there because I will be taking less fuel in the pits than they'll need to, because they will be pitting a lap earlier than myself. But we're going to jump ahead now by 1 lap. Torres has indeed pitted, which is why they're no longer there immediately behind us. And you can see down the bottom right, we're at 0.3, 0.2 laps remaining on the fuel/NRG down on the bottom right. Race leader is into the pit lane. P2 and P3 will also likely be pitting as well. You can see that at the moment I've got the virtual energy set to 5 laps, which is what I decided to go with in the end, which is, well, in hindsight, way too conservative. As we're into the pit lane with 13 minutes remaining. But yeah, we're going to be taking more virtual energy on board than I actually need to. So this pit stop could be shorter by a few seconds, as I would only need 3 or 4 laps. However, in my head, without a proper calculator, I hadn't calculated it quite right, and I was also doubting myself, so I decided to just play it safe. But here we go, trundling down the pit lane one last time in P8 as we're coming out towards the exit of the pits here. Disengaging the limiter, accelerating up through the gears, and we have a BMW here at full speed as they go for a move down the inside of us coming into the Dunlop chicane here. They do just about manage to get it slowed down, but you can see they're loose and squirrely all over the place, and we get a much better drive coming off the exit of that, so we do manage to retake the position before coming down into the S's. That is not necessarily it's a battle for position at the moment, but Manea in that BMW behind us does need to make their final stop, so it's not a net overall position that we are actually battling for. They've got a pretty good run coming off the exit of Tetra Rouge, and with that straight line speed that the BMW has, they're drawing up alongside us here, coming down this straight down towards the first Mulsanne chicane. Both lifting at the same sort of time, but actually braked a fair bit harder than we did. You can see in the brake trace that I actually lifted a little bit there to kind of draw up alongside and try and maintain the position, and they do indeed let me go. So obviously playing it fairly smart, realising that it's not worth fighting me, as we're not actually fighting each other on track. So once more we skip ahead by a few laps. There's 6 minutes remaining here in this race. Everyone has done their pit stops now, and we are in a net P6. Make a little bit of mistake there, going a little bit deep into Indianapolis and run onto the gravel, but we managed to keep it out of the wall. You can see again struggling with brakes into Arnage, probably a little bit of mixture of dirty tyres, but also tyres that are more heavily worn as we're coming towards the end of the race here. We are best part of 8 seconds behind P5, so I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us there to get that position. But keep an eye on the leaderboard up in the top left-hand corner, because there, P3, Simon Demiliers has just dived into the pit lane. They pitted on lap 19, a lap later than us, but evidently they have not taken enough fuel or enough NRG in order to make it to the end of the race, and have gone into the pits to top up. Now obviously whilst they're doing that, we are closing this gap down to them quite nicely. The question is, where are we going to come out? Where is he going to come out in relation to us? And there he is, coming out the exit of the pit lane now. So we are going to slip on past, coming into the braking zone here for the Dunlop chicane. But they have been pretty quick. They've been setting some pretty good lap times. And they are now just behind us, only half a second between the two of us. And I'm obviously, as I mentioned earlier in the pit stop, carrying more fuel and NRG now than I actually need to be. NRG is a virtual thing, so it's not actually car performance impacting. However, the fuel load actually is. Obviously, the more fuel we have on the car, the slower the car is going to be over the course of the lap. So, first time coming down the straight here, We've got BMW up in front of us. They're still half a second behind. Having a look to the inside, and we do indeed manage to clear the BMW, but so do they before we get into the chicane. And they've actually closed up by a tenth or so. It's 0.4 seconds. So they are now definitely in the slipstream, as moving back and forth across the straight a little bit here, just to try and break the tow, but they just simply remain calm and follow us. Braking as late as I dare to, coming into this second chicane. The 100-metre board is basically as late as you can brake without lifting and coasting. And that gap is now 0.3 seconds, so they've gained a little bit more time on us there through that last chicane by about a tenth. Got another GT3 up ahead of us, but they're not going to impact us here. Coming into the Mulsanne corner, but Demoliers is going for that move down the inside, and he manages to get it stopped and hook up the corner quite nicely as well and take that position. So an opportunistic move by them there, going for the earliest opportunity, and it's paid off quite nicely. But now we've got the slipstream on them, and we're tucking up underneath the rear wing. They are going defensive, coming on the run down towards Indianapolis. Very, very close to contact there between the two of us. If not, there was contact as we come side by side into the first part of Indianapolis, and I going back out of the move there as it goes a little bit deep under braking. It's going to give us an opportunity to be side by side again, coming down towards our nudge. They're still on our inside, giving them room as we come through the apex. A little bit of contact between the two of us, and with that they kind of over rotated a little bit, and that's given us a little bit of breathing room. Gap to 0.6 seconds now, 0.7, so they're continuing to lose out as we come down the straight. But some feisty racing there in the final few minutes of this race. I feel that this is going to be a battle that is going to continue to rage on, and as you can see, they are looking quite aggressive and wanting this 5th place if they can grab it. We're going to sneak around the outside of the BMW here, but Demoliers also manages to clear them before the left-hander as well, so they haven't really lost all that much ground. We now come into the final chicane, just grabbing the curbs, unsettling the car a whole bunch, and basically bail out of trying to actually make the corner. Obviously lifting a little bit here because I did gain a bit of an advantage from that. Now they're in a position to make a move coming down the inside into turn 1, but I'll have the inside for the chicane of turn 2 and 3, but I don't really want to go side by side through here, and I also actually want to nail my braking point and the apexes as well as they go too deep. So whilst they momentarily take the position away from us, we regain it by them effectively gaining the position by going off track and out-braking themselves. Yellow flag here with a BMW up in front of us that has absolutely no rear wing whatsoever. So it's compromised us a little bit there through Tetra Rouge, and again Demoliers is closing up off the exit of that, benefiting from me being a little bit more hesitant. Being a little bit compromised by the BMW. They're there on our outside as we run down towards the first Mulsanne chicane, getting very, very close between the two of us, tucking them now underneath their rear wing. Just presenting myself in the mirrors, but they aren't really fooled by that and managed to hit their marks, although the BMW in front has spun, and yeah, contact between the two of us there. I was hoping that the BMW is going to roll to the left-hand side of the track and clear a path, but that didn't really happen, and with the close proximity between me and Demoliers, there was no real opportunity to take any avoiding action. But picking up a bit of slipstream here, we're drawing alongside on the run down towards the second Mulsanne chicane. We are nosing ahead coming in towards the braking zone, but they do have the inside line and brake ever so slightly later than us. We're tucking in behind them and try and get a good drive off the exit of the corner, which we do manage to do slightly better than theirs. So again, we're going to try and pick up the slipstream, running a little bit wider there, coming through that right-handed kink just to give ourselves a little bit of space and try and keep the momentum that we have over them, plus any additional slipstream that we can grab. Problem is we've got a GT3 here in front of us. It's so close to making contact between the two of us. Let's come into the braking zone now. We are leaning on each other a little bit there. Demoliers squeezing me out a little bit wide. Car getting a little bit loose on the exit of the corner as well. Braking traction, that's given them the opportunity to scamper away with half a second, slightly more of an advantage over us as the sun is now dipping below the windscreen visor, so the sun is shining very much in our eyes. So we're coming down towards Indianapolis now. There is a GT3 up in front that's going to compromise Demoliers as we come into these sequence of corners as they go and outbrake themselves, go flying down the inside there of the GT3. They go too deep and we manage to slip on past both them and also the GT3 before we get to our Nage corner as well, retaking that 5th position. The rear end really complaining at the demand of grip that I'm asking for it, as we've got a gap of about a second or so now. We are on the final lap. The countdown timer has reached 0, so the race leader has gone across the start finish line to finish this race, as P2 is just crossing the line now. So we just need a nice tidy run coming through the Porsche curves here to hold on to this P5, which would be an absolutely fantastic 20 positions gained here in this race. Obviously wasn't my intention to be starting down in P25 with an absolute nightmare qualifying, but this has been an absolutely fantastic race with a pretty intense last couple of laps battle with Demoliers, getting quite feisty and aggressive, pretty hard racing, but you can kind of lean on each other a little bit. Thought Mulsanne corner was a little bit dirty there, it lent on me a little bit too much, but it worked out in our favour in the end with them making the mistake, outbreaking themselves in Indianapolis, and we do come away with the P5. If you enjoyed that race, please give it a like, comments and questions down below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. But that's going to be today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next time, have fun, stay safe, and take care.